and has a harder time reading 50s. But today we're going over to OCE, Ground Zero Gaming. They were one grand finals off getting a grand slam in OCE, which surprisingly has not happened even with teams like Ground Zero Gaming in the past, even with teams like Renegades, Power. No team has actually gotten a grand slam in OCE. So similar to NA and EU in that regard. NA and EU, they've had teams, I believe G2 was the closest. G2 were one overtime goal away from getting a grand slam in North America, but they weren't able to get it. Carmine Corps were one game away. They were one win away. But here's Ground Zero. They were, I believe, 2 wins away. They lost 4-2, I believe, in the grand finals of last split, or the last regional. But here we go. So these are the 5 players. So if you don't know Fiber and Kaka, they are very amazing players. I myself watch a lot of OCE just to see how well the region is doing. And of course we know Super Lucky, and he's been grinding ever since he was I believe he was kicked off of KCP. I'm not too sure about that. Don't quote me. But ever since then he seems very, very motivated. And I've heard from Yummy Cheese Man. He's been on 100 Pass 2 on occasion throughout this entire split. He's been really grinding. And of course Fiber, if you don't know Fiber, he is super, super mechanical, but he hasn't had a big break. He's been playing with people who are lesser OCE players in most people's opinions for a while. He's been on the cusp of being maybe a major team for a while, but it wasn't until he played with Super Lucky and Kaka that he was able to do it. And it's kind of the same picture for Kaka. Kaka's minions, they made it to 1 grand final, I believe, 1 or 2 grand finals last season. But he was never on a team good enough to actually make the major, or they were good enough, but normally on Championship Sunday, that's when they fell off. Normally when the pressure really got on. But now that he's with Fiber and Super Lucky, same picture as Fiber pretty much, they're now a top team in OCE, so great stuff to hear from Ground Zero. But as with every start of the stream, and if you're going to watch this on YouTube, you can of course skip ahead. But in regards to the stream, we have to make sure that we know what concepts are we trying to use as a baseline to ensure what all top teams are at minimum doing. And these 2 concepts are 1, possession, and then 2, make sure the 3 necessary areas of the pitch are covered. There we go. These are the 2 things that we're going to be really looking at whenever we analyze any team. So what is possession, first off? Well, possession is pretty simple to understand why it's a necessary part of high-level gameplay, and why we have to make sure pro teams are executing possession in the best way possible. Possession is necessary because, well, first and foremost, in order to win in Rocket League, what do you need? You need goals, right? So in order to win in Rocket League, you need goals. And since you need goals in order to win in Rocket League, why should you ever give away the ball if you kind of need the ball to score goals, right? Logically, it makes no sense. It's a lot more efficient just to keep the ball the entire time. But a second part to that is normally people object to that by saying, well, what if you have 0 boost? Well, if you have 0 boost, can't you just lose the 50 back to your teammate? You can still keep possession that way, right? And then some people say, well, what if your teammate has 0 boost? Well, that means your teammate didn't do their job. Part of rotating in Rocket League is making sure you're topped up with as much pads as you can when you're trying to get into position. And all you need for possession, really, for a good possession, is 30 to 50 boost. And the second man should be able to cover support optimally for the first man here. That's why possession is necessary. But what are the 3 necessary areas of the pitch? So that's the big question, is what are the 3 necessary areas of the pitch? Well, 1, of course, is the ball. 1, of course, is support. And then the last necessary part is off-ball pressure. Now, let's start with off-ball pressure, because a lot of people don't understand why off-ball pressure is a necessary part of the game. Off-ball pressure is essentially you trying to apply off-ball pressure by boost steals, bumps, demos, and eventually, once you get to the other side of the pitch, you can also be available for a pass, and since they are looking at the ball and not you, you're what's called a blindside pass. So we're applying pressure by presence, especially since they know we're there. And if they don't know we're there, then of course more opportunity for us, right? But keeping that in mind, what does it mean to not have off-ball pressure? Well, it means that whenever you're in front of the ball, what do? You instantly rotate back, right? Which means essentially the only part of the field that we cover is this part of the field. Another way of saying this is we're giving 2/3 of the field to the other team to do whatever they want, whether they have the ball or we have the ball, right? So keeping that in mind, would you want to give a team like G2 Esports 2/3 of the field to do whatever they want? Probably not, right? Would you want to give a team like Ground Zero, the team we're looking at today, 2/3 of the field to do whatever they want? Probably not, right? Would you want to give a team like Complexity, any of these teams, even Gaming Gladiators, you wouldn't want to give 2/3 of the field to do whatever they want, right? So keeping that in mind, that's what makes off-ball pressure a necessary part of Rocket League. And actually, we have an example of this way back at the Fall Major in 2021-2022. A team called Tokyo Verde Esports. They ended up not having any off-ball pressure. They instantly rotated back whenever they're in front of the ball. And they got swept 3 times in a row. Once by Dignitas, once by Ground Zero, and then once by G2. They got swept every single time. Some people are like, well, individually, aren't they not as good? True. But they individually were good enough to actually take games, especially in a LAN environment. But overall, since they had no off-ball pressure, it's the same question. They were giving G2 2/3 of the field to do whatever they want. You don't want to do that. Ground Zero, one of the best passing teams at the time. Would you want to give them space to do whatever they want? No, right? Would you want to give just Dignitas, or just Joria's, 2/3 of the field to do whatever he wants? Probably not, right? That's why off-ball pressure becomes a necessary part of Rocket League. But also on top of that, when we have off-ball pressure, we're essentially covering a majority of the field with just one player. And of course, the same support and ball guy part of the area is covered. So we're covering pretty much the whole pitch this way. This part of the pitch doesn't necessarily matter, but it was more the lateral space that we were giving to the other team that's really an issue, because we're giving them time to think, time to position, and more importantly, space to pass. So now that we know that, of course, everyone already knows ball guy and support guy is necessary. Now we know off-ball pressure is necessary. And off-ball pressure, that's pretty easy to understand. Boost steals, demos, blindside pass, right? Ball, pretty easy to understand. Keep possession, keep team possession, right? So what's support? A lot of people think support is there just to be a passing option. But due to Rocket League being such a momentum-based game, you want to maximize individualism, because whenever we look at Rocket League, what's our sphere of influence? With just momentum alone, our sphere of influence is massive in front of us, right? And once we add boost into the mix, that only expands our cone of influence in terms of individualism, right? So keeping that in mind, we want to maximize these cones of influence, right? So whenever we have someone, for example, a lot of people used to think high-level rotation is done like this. In the past, some people gave it names like Dignitas rotation, some people called it the Vitality V, and that was a long time ago, not very recently. Of course, there are Dignitas and Vitality now, but when we say Dignitas rotation, we mean Season 5, Season 6. When we say Vitality V, we mean Season 7, maybe a little bit of Season 8 as well. But looking at this, what do we not have right off the bat? Off-ball pressure, which we've already determined is a necessary part of Rocket League, off-ball pressure. But also keeping in mind, look at this. Second man is only useful if what happens? If a pass goes to him, right? So keeping that in mind, his sphere of influence is limited to just a pass and the shooting, right? This guy's usefulness is only limited to 50-50, going back to him, right? Another way people call this is, aside the 50 and the 50 and the pass guy, some people call it the best option and the worst option. But in Rocket League, pro players, and if you're trying to be pro, anyone should be trying to maximize individualism, and there shouldn't be such thing as a worst case or a best case. There's talking about a team reading the play and doing the best option and maximizing their options, right? So, but look at this. So the first man's sphere of influence is still the same, right? But since second man is only limited to a pass, his sphere of influence is just this. And third man's only useful for a 50, he's only limited to this, right? We're not covering any of the field like this, to be honest. Only the first man can cover it, and if he doesn't have the best mechanics and ball carrying skills, then of course, maybe his sphere of influence isn't actually that big to begin with, right? But also think of it like this. Second man, his ball can't facing the ball, right? So if someone's watching mid, and he asks for a pass, and this guy intercepts it, that's on you. right? You asked for a pass when you didn't know he was there. Like, what, can't I flick my camera? Well, what if he's rotating back, applying off-ball pressure, and then you can't see him when you flick your camera? Then it's an interception, correct? So second man can't see, and he's only useful for a pass anyway, and most of his passes will be useless because he can't see if the midfield's open, right? But also keeping that in mind, off-ball pressure, like something like, can't he go for a demo here? No, he can't go for a demo, right? So keeping that in mind, the reason why he can't go for a demo is because he's going with the flow of the opponents and against the flow of his team. Now, why do the opponent's flow oppose our flow? Because they're trying to stop the ball from going towards our net, and we're trying to stop the ball from going towards our net, right? So it's natural that both teams' flows oppose each other. But when we go for a demo like this, one, since we're going in the direction of their flow, it's easier for them to avoid the demos since they're going the same direction as us. But two, we're also getting in our teammates' way, right? And even if I were to ask you logically, there's 4 people in this flow and 2 people in this flow. Which flow is stronger? Where's that ball most likely going to spill out if I were to ask you just logically to guess? Most likely the ball's going to get popped out over to this side, right? So keeping that in mind, that's why second mate can't go for a demo here. So he literally is only useful in this type of rotation if he receives a pass. If his teammate loses a 50, he's useless. If his teammate solo plays, he's useless for the time being, right? So keeping that in mind, we have to find a way to fix that. And we have to find a way to have off-ball pressure, have a passing option, have a 50 option, and maximize individual skill. And that's why second man, of course, starts close behind facing forward. I'll talk about close in a bit, but of course facing forward makes sense because if our teammate loses a 50 and we're facing the other direction, we have to turn around, right? Which means the other team will just beat us to the ball. But on top of that, whenever we're supporting, we want to be facing behind. The reason why is because our ball cam, one, can see more, right? Naturally, we're covering the 50 since we're starting behind. But since we can see if the midfield's open or not, if it's open, we can go mid for our pass, right? But even if our teammate's not going to pass or says he's not, or we see he's not passing, what are we able to do? Where he can fall right back in behind and cover the only other option, the 50-50, right? So with one player, we're covering this whole area of the pitch, right? And of course, this person is covering this whole area of the pitch with his sphere of influence. This now means the third man is able to apply off-ball pressure and essentially cover the rest of the pitch. Because of course, this part doesn't really matter as much when we're on offense, but he is essentially covering the rest of the pitch, right? So this is how we're maximizing individual skills. As you can see, the second man, we're not taking away the passing option. If anything, we're making it so the second man covers both the 50 and the pass, because his ball cam can see the midfield's open now, right? When he's over here, he couldn't see if it was open, but when he's here, he can. And if someone is there, you can just stay and cover the 50, right? If someone's not there, you can go there for a pass, and even if the pass doesn't come, you can fill right back in behind. Support covered by one player. Off-ball pressure covered by one player. Possession covered by one player. And this maximizing of individual skills is what makes Rocket League 3 so easy when you understand these important fundamentals. Let's think about it. In twos, you have to add it. Both the first man and the second man have to mix in off-ball pressure in their own position and support rotations, right? Now, why do we support close? So I said support is supposed to be behind and facing forward, which we now understand. But why do you have to be close? Well, think of it like this. When you're supporting anything in real life, you want it to be close to you, right? So let's say I throw a basketball at you, right? And you were trying to catch it. Are you locking your hands out in front of you, catching it with just your hands? Or are you catching it with your hands as you're bringing it in close to your chest? You're bringing it in close to your chest, right? Imagine you're holding a baby, for example. Would you hold your arms straight out in front of you with the baby in your hands? Or would you hold the baby close to your chest, cradling the baby, supporting the baby? You'd bring it close to your chest, right? So now, in Rocket League, would you support your teammate from far away? Or would you support your teammate from close? You'd support your teammate from close, right? So keeping that in mind, we want to make sure that whenever we're looking at whenever we're looking at Rocket League and supporting in general, we want to make sure second man is supporting close to their teammates, right? Because at the end of the day, can you hold a baby from far away? Sure. Can you catch a basketball with your arms locked? Sure. But one, for the baby, it's not safe. But two, it's very inefficient. It's harder to do from far away. And it's slower, right? Now, we saw from FaZe yesterday that they have an issue with supporting from far away. Crew Esports also had the very same issue, supporting from far away. So, but what's the difference between Crew and FaZe? Well, FaZe, they individually are so good at reading the play that even though it's way harder to support from far away, they're able to do it. Although they could still become way better if they did support close. And there was at least one game where they were supporting close and were confident. But in all the other games, they weren't, right? So keeping that in mind, individually you can make up for it, but it's still a skill that we need to make sure is being done. And same thing with supporting in Rocket League. You can support from far away, but it's harder, less efficient, and slower, right? Because if another team is reading the play faster than you are, and you're far away to boot, then you're going to get beat to that ball every single time, right? So there we go. And we can give these positions, we can give these areas of the field off ball pressure. We can give these areas of the field positions, right? We can say the person on the ball is first man, the person supporting is second man, and the person applying off ball pressure is third man. Right, so now we have positions that we can go off of. And individually, there is one more thing we're looking at, and making sure whenever we're looking at a team, we want to make sure when they're forcing high, right? Because if the ball's in the air and someone's flying, the whole point of forcing is to make it easier for the person behind us to get the ball, right? So when you force high, we aim it between the ball and the car. They're going in one direction the entire time, which makes it way easier for our teammate behind us to read, right? Whereas if we force low, what ends up happening is they're going up, but then they get a reset, or they start an air dribble going down. That's one direction change, and then they can go up again if they're reset and an air dribble, or then go down again, right? That's a lot of direction changes for your second man to be able to read, right? That's why we force high. But also, we only force high when it becomes threatening. If they're air dribbling off their own backboard, that's not threatening, no matter which way you slice it. It only becomes threatening once they're in front of our net and able to shoot. So if you're playing against a player that's air dribbling through the air, you don't jump at all until if they're able to air dribble all the way to here and then they're able to shoot, only when they get to this position do you force high. Because what happens if you force high too early? They're able to get it over you, maintain possession, and then be able to put a good shot on target, right? So we don't want to jump high because one, it wastes a lot of boost if you force high too early, but two, we have this phenomenon where they can just get it over us and continue to maintain possession. Right? So we only want to force high when it becomes threatening, and we want to just force high in general. But there we go. Those are the fundamental things we're going to be looking for going into today. And of course, Ground Zero, they're a very solid team. Here's my initial predictions for Ground Zero. Of course, I've watched Liquid already. I've analyzed Liquid, and I've analyzed Team Secret. But I haven't analyzed Ground Zero yet. When we look at Liquid, individually, Liquid are really, really good. They're actually the first team we analyzed. Individually really good. Not a lot of individual mistakes from Team Liquid, and there's not a lot of weaknesses, but there's also not a lot of strengths as a team for Team Liquid outside insane mechanics and stealing boost. But outside of the mechanics, recoveries, and stealing boost, Liquid don't have a lot of strengths and they don't have a lot of weaknesses, but there's still they're just a very consistent team. But the one weakness they do have is in abnormal situations, they have a hard time adapting. And that's a really poor choice, because some teams don't have as much structure as others, but they can adapt to abnormal situations. So the weakness that Liquid do have is pretty big. Whereas when we look at a team like Team Secret, for example, when we look at Team Secret, individually, Knight has some issues with reading the play when he's nervous, but KV1 Sadness, they don't have really any issues. As you can see, Secret, they slightly have a little bit more weaknesses than some teams, but they also have a lot more strengths. So the question with Secret is their strengths going to make up for their weaknesses? It could, and individually they're really solid, but the question is, would they be able to do that against Secret? Would they be able to do that against Ground Zero? Well, before we can compare those three teams officially, let's look at Ground Zero Gaming. Like we talked about before, this is Fiber, Kaka, and Super Lucky. Very solid team. But here we go. As we Ground Zero, they have a lot of first place. A lot of first places over the years. And actually, back in Season 9, Ground Zero were considered not even near the best team. They ended up getting number 1 in the league play in Season 9. But what's it called? They went 5-2. They lost to Esper, and then they barely beat Cringe Society. Everyone thought that Ground Zero would lose this. They lose to Renegades. Everyone thought they'd lose to Renegades, and then they barely beat Mind Freak as well. So a lot of people were saying Ground Zero should not have been number 1, but then they beat Cringe Society again, And then they beat Fury, which is Amphas's old team, with 2 players that no one considers to be that good. I consider them to be solid. I believe both of them have since retired. And then they beat him again since Fury somehow beat Cringe Society. So, but this is also right when COVID started, so no one really cared about this season. But overall, still, it's a lot of good stuff. And excuse me, they were actually 1 game away off winning. It wasn't Game 6, it was Game 7. Misremembered on my part. So with Ground Zero, we actually do have a good match to look at in the group stage. So that's what we're going to look at first. We're going to look at Ground Zero versus Merge. And if you don't know Merge, it's Cabo, Caleb, and Gus. Really solid players. Caleb, he's shown up on my stream a couple of times. Cabo, he's a really kind person. He's also a really good Rocket League player. And Gus, very mechanical, especially in the OCE region. So Merge, very solid team. And I believe Merge were actually 1 game off of top 4. Yeah, they almost beat Pioneers. Well, Pioneers 10-1'd them. But then they had some pretty close games after that. Let's see, Ground Zero. They're doing, after this game, they had a 3-1, a 3-0, and then a 3-2. So that's what we're going to look at first, is Ground Zero versus Merge. And, oh my, replays aren't showing. So we're going to probably have to go to another region here just to find OCE real quick. Replay files. Because the replays are saved. Don't get me wrong. Replays are saved. So what we can do here is we can go to Regional 3. And then go to Oceania. Main event. Groups. Here we go. Group A. So we're going to look at, I think Ground Zero were Group A this time. Were they Group A? Yeah. Oh, wrong round. Groups. Oh, I did it again. Round 3. Here we go. We'll be looking at Merge versus Ground Zero. What game should we look at for between these teams? We should probably look at 4-3. So game 4, Ground Zero versus Merge. All right, so that's what we'll look at. Game 1. Where's game 4? Ground Zero versus Merge, game 4. So sadly, we can't look at the series stats with how they arrange this. Now we can see Super Lucky, Fiber, and Kaka, all very solid players. Looking at demos. Okay, so they do got, they're about even in demos with both these teams. We could be seeing a little bit more demos, but maybe there's going to be some bumps. If we see some bumps, then of course that would be fantastic. But let's look at the player boost, average boost. That's one thing I want to look at, average boost. So this is actually really low, especially for pro standards. So Fiber having this low boost is pretty bad, but maybe he has a lot of big pads. So Fiber, he doesn't have a lot of big pads or smaller pads. So Fiber, hopefully he has some killer boost management because he doesn't take boost at all. Actually, he overfills a lot on boost as well. So he could be holding down boost. Amount used while supersonic. Okay, he doesn't use it when he's supersonic, so this could show that Fiber is just really good at conserving boost. And that is something we'll have to keep in mind. And actually, looking at this, yeah, he doesn't grab any pads on offense. He takes his back corner boost. Looking at movement, though, they are definitely fast. They're a somewhat fast team. Fiber a little slower than some. Percentage on ground. This could mean Fiber is very pre-jumpy. So, because normally we want to see at minimum like a 49.5 percentage on the ground. Because when you're on the ground more, it means you're not tend to be reading what's happening more, right? You don't jump for unnecessary balls. Whereas normally if you get above 60, then you can maybe say some players are hesitating a little bit too much, rather than actually knowing they should jump or not. So it's a little fine balance. I find 50 to 60 to be the sweet spot for that, though. But without further ado, let's get started with Ground Zero versus Merge here in the first replay. We'll start here with Fiber. A lot of people know Fiber, but he's extremely mechanical. He also, he also is very loud and very fun to hear on the comm videos whenever they win something. So here we go. We do see an early jump. This is something that OCE is starting to become a little bit known for, early jumping. So this could be more of a region thing rather than just a individual thing. But as you can see, since they were able to jump, since he jumped up so early, his opponent here, like, look at Caleb's POV. Oh, looks like he's changed his name. Here we go. Caleb's gonna take possession here. He sees Fiber going up. He goes for the bump, and then Gus this entire time, he was waiting for the pass. Look at this. Pass over, and then Gus, he's just up for the ball first, and then double tap. I would say Gus is extremely mechanical, even for OCE. But as you see, this was all started here with Fiber jumping too early for a ball, right? Whenever we're forcing high, we want to make sure we force high only when we either know 100% we can get that ball, or when it becomes threatening, right? Now, OCE players are really good at challenging the ball really early. They are really good at reading the ball. But this, of course, is just he's jumping way too early for it. And then let's look at Kaka in this play as well. He grabs the boost. He's trying, like we can see, he's trying to. Oh, he definitely thought there was going to be a 50-50 there. So little misread there on Kaka's part. But it definitely looks like, actually, like from his POV, it really does look like Fiber is touching it. So I guess he can be forgiven. And Super Lucky ends up forcing high, but since Kaka had that misread, it ends up not working out well. So a little bit of a missed first play there from Fiber, but let's see if it becomes a recurring issue, or let's see if it's a team issue. Here we go, Fiber through the air, ends up not being able to get the possession he wants out of that one. Here we go. Let's see how he supports his teammate again. You're probably wondering why Fiber turns around there. I think it's more of a comfortability issue, because he read exactly where that ball was going. It's just he feels a little bit more. We can see Fiber feels a little bit more comfortable being backwards to a ball. So I will have to see him facing the play. That's the one issue that we're noticing from Fiber right off the bat, is he's always shadowing, which if done properly is okay, but you have to know when. Kaka maintaining possession. You see Fiber supporting here, takes possession. That's a good read. So here he's facing the play. Looks like when his teammates have the ball, he's fine with reading the play, but when his opponents have the ball, he tends to go immediately into a shadow. And we can see that might even be the play style for Ground Zero, because as we can see, Super Lucky, he's also backwards. But what ends up happening here? So Super Lucky, he ends up getting bumped. He almost got a read. And then what happened here with Kaka? I think we've seen a couple times where Kaka has misread the play here. Yeah, Kaka's been in some awkward situations, but we're going to stay in Kaka here just for a little bit, just to see if reading the play really is an issue for him, or if it was just those two really weird looking plays. So Kaka's going to fill in first here. I want to see awful pressure. There we go. He goes for a bump. He doesn't even turn off ball cam, though, so that's one issue. We could definitely, yeah, so we can see he's playing reactionary here. Look how far away from the play is, because we can see the ball hitting off the crossbar there, but he only turned after the ball actually bounced, and he knew he had space. So that's one issue we're noticing from Kaka, is he's kind of he's reacting to the play rather than reading where that ball's going. That's going to be a beat off the backboard, and a good follow-up as well. So looking at this from Ground Zero. Look at this. So Kaka, he supports. He gets a beat. And Fiber with a shot. So we can definitely see the mechanics on Ground Zero are very solid. Look at this shot. Perfect shot on target. Tons of power, tons of speed. Let's go over to Super Lucky here. Actually, I do want to confirm, actually. Let's confirm if Kaka does have an issue with reading the play. And it could just be, because it could just be a defense thing. Isn't it giving away the ball there? We can definitely see possession is a main focus of Ground Zero. So that's a good part about Ground Zero. One of their strengths is they know the importance of possession. Super Lucky taking his time. Great possession there. Follow up from Kaka. Kaka goes for a bump instead. Little risky. Luckily it works out. Kaka taking his time. Plays 50. Gets a bump as well. That's actually a really good mechanical play there. Follow up to the backboard. Yeah, we can definitely see Kaka has issues with knowing where that ball's going to go sometimes. Ooh, another early jump from Fiber. This time it's okay, though. I think he has a really good read on this, so I'm fine with it. Look at Super Lucky now. Super Lucky is now going to try and fill in behind Fiber. He notices the midfield's open here for a pass. And he goes behind for the 50. Great fundamentals here. Like we talked about this earlier. If you know the midfield's open, you can go mid for a pass. But once he notices the pass is not coming, look, he goes to cover the 50-50. That's fantastic stuff from Super Lucky. And then great shot on target as well. So that's mechanics. That's great rotation and everything like that. We have a couple things that we can go off of here for the strengths of Ground Zero. So, the team's understanding of the structural concepts of high-level rotation is fantastic. The team is also very mechanical and solid with their 50-50s. The one thing I am noticing is it does seem like nerves affect their mechanics. So that's one issue that I'm noticing, is sometimes the first touches aren't the best. So, mechanically, when the team is nervous / under pressure, we can notice first touches are not the cleanest nor the best. That's one thing we are noticing as a team from that. But the team's understanding of structural concepts of high-level rotation is fantastic. The team is also very mechanical and solid with their 50-50s. Something else that we can add on for them is the team understands the importance of the 3 necessary areas of the field. Boost management is also a strong point for this team. So a lot of stuff there. Now, it does seem like Kaka has issues with reading the play, but it seems like to be issues, he seems to have issues comparable to Knight, actually. So issues come from the ability to read the play where the ball is going instead of reading the ball. But to clarify, he does read the play in some situations. When his team's under pressure or during 50-50, he's not the best at reading. So instead, he reacts the play. So this is something that, like, Knight has that we can actually put down for Kaka. And then I want to look at Fiber and Super Lucky just to see if it's a team issue. So we'll probably look at, for the next 53 seconds, we'll look at Super Lucky's camera unless we see something big from Fiber. Super Lucky. Gonna fill in second here. But yeah, Super Lucky's rotations definitely seem strong. Super Lucky sees he's getting beat there, so he just fills in behind. Great adaptive rotation here from Super Lucky. He knows he has time as well. Great patience as well. But I think Ground Zero making this land will definitely help with their confidence and experience, because Fiber and Kaka, they've been wanting to make a major here for so long. They finally make their first one. So I think Ground Zero honestly look better than they did even online. Once they hit this land. But looking at this, we can definitely see Super Lucky. He tries to maintain possession. Now we'll be back over to Cabo. Looks like maybe a misread from Fiber. Yeah, looks like more of a misread here because he sees the ball's going up the sidewall. Oh, yeah. Oh, he just backflipped. I think he could have gotten that. And then Kaka, he does end up rushing back for a big boost. So that's something we're noticing from... We'll continue to watch Kaka here for a little bit because he goes upfield. And he... Yeah, I think he just really thought he had time there. But I guess we get to put that down again to another misread from Kaka. He doesn't know what's happening. Super Lucky. Gonna go back for boost here. Fibers through the air. Follow up, pass, shot, goal. Great passing, honestly. So here we go. Another strength we can put down for Ground Zero is the team is also fantastic with passes, which combined with their solo plays, means that the team is very dynamic when it comes to their play style. The players are also great at adapting to the play and knowing what positions in priority need to be filled in. Priority goes ball guy, support guy, off ball catcher guy. All three of these jobs are still necessary, but this is the priority, and they're filling it in perfectly. So it looks like music stopped, so unpause that. But let's see how this goal goes in. So it does look to be almost a kickoff goal for Ground Zero. That's a fantastic shot if I've ever seen one. Now, let's see how this happens. So it looks like Fiber gets an unnecessary touch. So I think that's something that Fiber can work on is when taking possession, do the most optimal play and continue to take possession to space. By taking possession, he doesn't always do the most optimal play and needs to continue to take possession to open space or a teammate. So that's one thing we're noticing here from Fiber. Yo, I don't know why, but I can't rank up in twos. I'm only deranking. That's part of improvement. This actually is relevant to improvement at pro gameplay as well. Improvement is not linear. It's not like a line. It's also not like this, where it's improvement, plateau, and improvement. Improvement is more like this right here, but instead of it being a straight line, it's ups and downs, like right here. And once it goes to a plateau, it's ups and downs even in a plateau. So what you're experiencing here is you've probably reached your top rank, and then you have moments where you go down to your lowest rank. Back to your top rank, down to your lowest rank. And this is just for skill in general. So this goes for pro teams as well. Some pro teams have really high ceilings and really low floors. Some teams have a really consistent average. But it's up to you to try and... You're not going down in skill. What you're currently doing is trying to improve your consistency. Right now, you are going... For example, I know a player that went up 200 MMR one day, down 300, up 100, down 50, up 100, down 25, up 200, down 100, up 50. And as you can see, this does not look linear at all, right? If we were like, this doesn't look linear at all, does it? You will have times where you just go down. But if you keep focusing on what you need to improve on, you will eventually go back up, and you will never go that far down again. Now, as you can see, when you go up to the high, you probably think you would never drop down super far again, but maybe your floor really is that low. But the next time you go up, you won't drop down that far again if you keep working hard. And this goes for anything you're trying to improve in. You realize it's the beginning of the season, right? So at the beginning of the season, you are currently playing... For example, right now, I am currently sitting at around 1,700 right now, which is currently around... Which was high SSL at the end of the season, last season. It's been 2 to 3 weeks, no? Yeah, it's been 2 to 3 weeks. It's still not a long time. Like, I'm currently sitting at around 1,700, and... I'm I'm playing against people who were high SSL last season. So, like, don't get... Whenever it's... Like, the only time... Like, for example, you were 1730 towards the end of the season, right? More towards the end half of the season. So, you can't be expecting yourself to be 1700 at the beginning of this season, right? You still have to improve. Oh, yeah, so you got towards the end of the last season, then you are literally in a great spot right now. Because I'm sure if I ran into you in twos right now, I mean, this is just, no doubt I would probably be doing, I'd probably win, right? Because I played against people who I knew were 1700 and around 1500, 1600 right now, and it was pretty easy win for me. Yeah, well, you can have your expectations, so but at the end of the day, you still always have to keep in mind that you will have times where you go down a little bit in rank. Your rank is not the visual indicator as to how good you are. You should be able to look at your own replays and see if you're executing what you want to improve on. Your rank isn't a visual indicator. Don't let rank be the indicator as your actual skill. Now, it's a good indicator for other people, but don't let it be an indicator for you. We're looking at this goal here. Misread from there. Bad touch from Fiber. But let's see. Let's go upfield to Kaka, because I believe he did have possession of the kickoff. Wait, no, never mind. It's just Fiber. Here we go. So he tries to speed up to that ball. Ends up giving it away. Not the best touch. Misread from Super Lucky. It's a really fast play. We don't have anything for Super Lucky yet, so I do want to see if he has really fixed a lot of his individual skills. There we go. Super Lucky trying to maintain possession. Gets a 50. Tries to get the dunk. Possession to Kaka. Kaka misreads it again. They really wanted a goal. It's the only reason I Super Lucky. Probably didn't try to read that there. Is it across? Yeah. Around 0. It looks like mainly their goals here. I mean, there were some good goals from Merge Esports, don't get me wrong. But they were created more from individual issues on Ground Zero rather than team issues. Speed off the backboard. Bops it in the air. Alright. That's replay number 1. Let's see what we have here. So Super Lucky, we didn't notice any issues. Mechanical in the team is never found. We can notice first touches are not the cleanest nor the best. Under pressure, all 3 of them can have issues with reading where the ball is going instead of reading the ball is going. Under pressure on defense, all 3 of them can have issues with reading where the ball is going and instead react to the play, which makes them slower to the ball than opponents that are reading where the ball is going. But Fiber for him when taking, I think another thing we have to put down here is, okay, so what we can do here is actually, as a team, great at forcing the ball high on defense. But then we have to put for them down here, even though they force high, they force high too early, aka when it is not threatening. Which means that the opponent with the ball can regain possession after being forced high and still put a threatening shot on target. As we see, there are some weaknesses from Ground Zero, but there's also a lot of strengths. But not a lot of individual weaknesses. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go on to the next replay here. Attack the individual ninjas. That any of these games close? Probably the best thing to look at here from Ground Zero is, well, it looks like we can look at a semifinal match here, actually. They won game 1, but there's game 1 nerves. You know what, let's look at game 1 in the semifinal. Let's do that. Looking at the stats, let's see if they've picked up on the demo end of things. Not a lot of demos, and they got demoed a lot, so that does become an issue. Here we go, average boost. Super lucky, actually pretty low here. Stolen, but they also stole a lot of big pads, so maybe he's just using a little bit too much boost. But he has a lot of mini pads, so who knows? Maybe he's actually good. It actually could mean he's also getting demoed a lot too, which is funny. Okay, speed game. Bench on the ground. Fiber still in the air a little bit too much. Again, showing him might be pre-jumping a little bit too much, but without further ado, let's get into this one. Okay, so just keep in mind, we're keeping in mind, Fiber when he's taking possession doesn't always do the most optimal play. So let's see and he needs to take the possession to space or a teammate more often. Super Lucky, we haven't found an individual issue yet, so for now, we can just say Super Lucky's individual issues are covered in team issues. Kaka has issues with reading the play when he's under pressure, or during a 50-50, so that's something that we can put. But strengths that we have to understand is their understanding of high-level rotation. Fantastic. The team is also very mechanical and solid with their 50-50s. The team understands the importance of the 3 areas of the field. Boost management's a strong point for this team by what it looks like. This might change. I have it as a strength, but honestly, it might change to not being a strength here because, but we'll see what happens in this replay. Maybe it's not a strength. But this team is fantastic with passes, which combined with their solo plays, makes the team and their play style very dynamic. The players are also great at adapting to the play and knowing positions and priority are filled. What's the priority positions? Well, we of course need a ball guy first, support guy second, off-ball pressure third. All 3 of these things are still necessary parts of the game like we talked about earlier, but they understand the priority really well. So no one's on the ball, someone's challenging. If someone's not supporting the person on the ball, someone's supporting. And if both those are already covered, they have off-ball pressure. And they're also great at forcing the ball high on defense. But at the same time, mechanically, when the team is nervous or under pressure, it seems like first touches are not the best or cleanest. And then under pressure on defense, all 3 of them can have issues with reading where the ball's going and instead react to the play, which makes them a little slower to the balls than some players. Yeah, I do too, Spud. Now, what I prefer are the games where I have 1,200 points and my teammate has only like 80 by the end of the game. But here we go. And then, even when they force high, but for example, they force high, but they also sometimes do it too early, aka when it's not threatening, which means the opponent can essentially just get right over them. And then after they get over them, they still have possession, right? So they can still put a threatening shot on target. So let's see if we can add anything here to Super Lucky. But you're probably wondering, like, why'd we look at a group stage match first? Well, one thing you'll notice is that as a tournament goes on, teams, of course, get more nervous. And they get more nervous normally, right? Or they feel a lot more pressure on them, correct? So keeping that in mind, you would think that, oh, wouldn't that mean that the team has more mistakes as the tournament goes on? No, actually. Normally, you see teams, they don't get more mistakes as the tournament goes on. They actually tend to have the mistakes that they're already making tend to get worse, right? So, for example, all the weaknesses individually and as a team that we saw and we've taken notes of so far, they should only be getting worse, or at least minimum stay the same as a tournament goes on. If a team is really confident, normally you see the weaknesses stay the same. But if they're not confident, normally that's where you see it gets worse. But here we go. Ball's gonna get popped over now to Fiber. So Super Lucky trying to maintain possession. It's a 50. You can see Ground Zero very confident on their 50-50 game. There's one player in OCE that's been known for his 50-50s, and that's Tango. He's really good at the low 50. As we can see, jumping early, and that jumping early issue causes them to rush back to net. And so there we go. We're again seeing, well, one, issues with reading the play. I think that was, yeah, Fiber has an issue with reading the play here. This should have been a free possession. There we go. Sometimes we see mechanics get a little bit messed up when the players are nervous or under pressure. But with this, with Super Lucky, he does end up trying to force high and go a little bit too early, which is, as we've noted, a team issue. But we're noticing it in the first, just after the first minute of the game, compared to the last game where we saw it a couple of times, so, or we only saw it like maybe 2 times. So we are noticing the issues are becoming more prevalent as the game goes on, but we're not seeing more issues, right? We're seeing the same ones, just they're worse now. Speaking of which, anyone see the CSGO 2 trailer coming? That CSGO 2 trailer and everything like that? Like, I only got to play CSGO, like, my first year in high school, which was, I think, 2017. So, back in 2017, my first year in high school, that's when I first started playing CSGO. But, what's it called? But that was still way after CSGO originally came out, if I remember correctly. So it's nice that there's a CSGO game coming out that I can actually, like, download right off the bat. One thing I really liked is the smokes. The smokes that were added. The smokes are a lot more dynamic. They're a lot more dynamic. They fill up space and everything like that, so I can't wait to use those. And of course, the inevitable thing that people are going to compare, they're going to probably compare the CSGO 2 to Valorant. Of course, which is, I think, is inevitable. I mean, everyone have been comparing Valorant to CSGO the entire time, but now they're going to have to compare CS2 to Valorant. Now, I did notice one bad thing. I didn't like that that bullets make it so there's a hole in the smoke. So essentially what that means is that whoever shoots through a smoke first is going to die, because he's going to create a hole that people can shoot through at him, right? So that's the one bad thing I'm noticing about smokes in CS:GO right now, with the new update. But for example, I love the fact that grenades can counter a smoke just momentarily, right? So, and of course you don't have an unlimited amount of grenades, so you have to be very careful with how you use them. Although what's making me wonder is, what's it called? Because smoke is a counter to a Molotov, a grenade's a counter to a smoke, and then running away is a counter to a grenade. But let's see what happens here. Kaka loses the 50, and then on defense, we can definitely see the reads on offense, for example, these teams, very solid. We can see these players are very confident on offense with reads. When it comes down to the defensive end of things, because right here, Kaka goes for this ball, and I knew where that ball was bouncing that entire time, but it seemed like Superlucky either wasn't confident, because I think Superlucky knew where that ball was bouncing, but he wasn't confident. So that is an issue as a team that we are noticing on defense when they're under pressure. There's nerves. Here we go. He doesn't go for a bump there. That's one thing that I'm noticing, that Ground Zero are weak on the off-ball pressure. The team is weak with off-ball pressure. Instead of going for demos, they normally just get a boost deal and rotate out. Like we talked about, off-ball pressure is a necessary part of the game, and they are applying off-ball pressure, but how they apply off-ball pressure is pretty weak. Here we go. But looks like I think we're pretty much done with analyzing Ground Zero here today. I think we have found out all their overlying issues. And underlying issues. But yeah, they're taking possession. They're doing their job for the most part. They know what they're doing. They know how to rotate. They know the structure. They know how to fill in. It's just individually we're seeing some issues that's causing Ground Zero to not be as strong as say some other teams. But compared to Liquid and Secret, we can definitely see that they're actually very similar. So the one thing that Ground Zero and Secret, even though Ground Zero and Secret have more weaknesses than Liquid have a really, really bad weakness. And that weakness is they are very bad at adapting. And as we can see, Ground Zero and we saw with Secret, that both these teams are great at adapting. And it's almost like individually they make up for their mistakes by adapting. That's another strength that we can put for them. When a team mistake does happen, the players are super fast and confident in filling in that mistake, allowing them to adapt even to the most abnormal situations. I can see a lot of strengths for Ground Zero, as a matter of fact. But there's also a lot of weaknesses. That's something we have to keep in mind. So, for example, Ground Zero, they could go 3-0 in their group. They could go 1-2. They could go 2-1. Liquid, they could go 3-0. They can go 2-1, or they can go 1-2. And same thing with Secret. All three of those teams can honestly, they can beat, all three of these teams can beat each other. So we can see a world with Ground Zero where they 3-0. We can see a world with Secret where they 3-0. We can see a world with Liquid where they 3-0. What team is the most likely to 3-0 is a very hard question to really answer. But look at that. Mechanics. But honestly, Ground Zero are pretty easy to read on what their mistakes were. But let's look at Game 5 of the Grand Finals here, and then we'll be done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. But yeah, it is something we do have to keep in mind here about Ground Zero is they are a very good team. And Ground Zero, like for example, we've talked about before, Secret, Ground Zero, and Liquid. Not any three of these teams could be good enough to say could be good enough to win a major, but it would require other teams not playing at their best. So for example, the likelihood of Liquid, Ground Zero, or Secret winning a major is not that high. I think out of the three teams, I think Secret would have the best chances at winning. But for example, even Secret still have some weaknesses that make them inconsistent. Now, out of the three teams, I think Ground Zero are the least likely to win the major, just because we see a lot of individual weaknesses that come from nerves. But for example, Ground Zero, they have enough to beat any team at the major, for example. It's just there's some other teams with a little bit less weaknesses or a little bit more confidence that should be able to make up for, that should be able to beat Ground Zero. But at the end of the day, majors are a completely different beast. If I remember correctly, my initial predictions have Ground Zero beating Liquid in round 1. I think that's the best case scenario for Ground Zero. If they're going to go 3-0 in the group, they play Liquid round 1. And then after that, they play Secret. I do have Secret beating them, but that's just because I do think Secret are a completely different team than Sam has been in the past. Man, I hate solo Q2s. Sounds like you just hate improving, though, bro. Because I like, for example, and I'm kidding. I understand 2s can be frustrating. I really do understand 2s can be frustrating, but overall, it's more of improvement for the individual. Play as fast as you can. Practice those mechanics. Practice supporting your teammate from behind, close facing forward, and do all that just while going as fast as possible. Okay, why are you mad that you're queuing against pros? That's like I said before. Ranked is for improvement, not for winning. Like, if, for example, me, I love when I play against pros. Here we go. That's going to be back over to Fiber. Looking for a way to apply alpha pressure there. But it does seem like, yeah, I think the weaknesses... So, Ground Zero, they do apply off-ball pressure, but they also don't do it the most optimally. I think that's one thing we have to put down for Ground Zero is they apply off-ball pressure, but they don't do it the most optimally. Even though they go for it, it's not normally the most useful thing to do. But here we go. Half the game left to go. Kaka taking possession. That's a great read from Fiber. See, that was useful. He tries to put the ball to space, but he does end up giving it away at the very end. Super Lucky with a great read. I think that's one more strength we can put down for these three players. All three players are great at challenging the ball on offense and in the midfield. On defense is something else, but on offense and in the midfield, looking very solid. Here we go, though. Now he's going to be supporting. Now he's going to play ball guy. Super Lucky goes for a bump. I'm chatting through. Here we go. Ooh. What happened here? Well, against Kaka forces high really early. That's something that we noticed here. He's going really, really early. And then a great mechanical play from KCP as well. So that's another issue we're noticing. I mean, Spot, I think you've watched me when I've played ranked 2s before, bro. I mean, like, I'll get annoyed at a dumb teammate, but at the end of the day, I still always blame myself. And if I play against a pro, I will enjoy playing against that pro. At the end of the day, ranked is just for improvement. Nothing else. It is necessary to get yourself known, especially being high level in 2s. It is necessary to get known, but at the end of the day, it still is just for improvement. Pros use it for improvement, or because they're told they have to play it. Now, they're told they have to play it because it's for improvement, but of course there are some issues with that. Yeah, looking at this ground zero team, they are very mechanical. They are very solid rotationally. It's also like, even they have all these individual skills, but they also have these individual weaknesses. That's the one thing I'm noticing. Passing plays, dynamic offense right there. But KCP are also pretty solid rotationally. But thank you, everybody who's been showing up to the stream. Remember, Gaiman Gladiators is tomorrow, so remember to show up for that. We're going to see how Gaiman Gladiators have managed to take down Elevate in the grand final. Because Gaiman Gladiators, they have OSM, LCT, and Max EW. I think. And they were able to beat Virtuoso, who's been a main event player for EU, which, to be honest, as we've seen, the lower you go in the drop off in EU team skill is, like, in terms of teams rotating, is like exponential. But what's it called? Even keeping that in mind, Virtuoso's right there was on that team. Realized best player in APAC mechanically, and then you got Kami, who's been top 4 at the World Championship before, and he also in the last World Championship was also pretty solid. And then they ended up getting knocked out by Gaming Gladiators. I mean, like, for example, my old team is. We actually 6-1 Gaming Gladiators, but they were playing with Commutator at the time. But we ended up 6-1ing them in scrims, and we were just a rank B team. Well, we're a rank B team that was beating a lot of different, like, higher level teams at the time, but at the end of the day, I think most people just saw us as a rank B team. I mean, I just want to solo queue in a good rank and not be okay, then all you gotta do is improve. If you stop worrying about what rank you're in, instead of working on improvement, your rank will naturally go up. Trust the process. All you're doing by getting mad at being in a bad rank is you're stifling your own improvement opportunities. Oh boy. Looks like Super Lucky. I mean, this was a hard read, but Yeah, that's why it ends up going in. So super solid gold. I mean, like looking at it, like honestly, looking at it from Hunter's POV, like, look at it from Hunter's POV. Like this is just a really good goal. Like look, he got power, he got accuracy. But for example, here, it's been this is threatening way like here. But look how long it takes for someone to actually challenge. So that's why like forcing high when it becomes threatening is really hard to do, but it's a very fine line. You have to make sure you don't do it too early. You have to make sure you don't do it too late. You have to do it right when it becomes threatening. But I think we honestly got some solid notes here from Ground Zero. But thank you so much, everybody, for showing up to the stream. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your night. Tomorrow we're going to be going over Gaiman Gladiators, so make sure to turn in for that. And then right after that, we got Carmine Core and Gen G. And then overall, yeah, thank you so much for everybody who showed up today. And tomorrow, 1 p.m. PST, so 4 p.m. EST. And I don't want to play the game if I'm playing against bad people. Okay, if you don't want to play it, like, you have to realize you are one of the bad people if you can't beat bad people. But yep, 4 p.m. EST. But if you want to improve, bro, you got to make sure, like, it doesn't. If you're playing against bad people, it's because you are a bad player. There's no which way to slice it. And if you want to play against good people, you have to beat the bad people. That's just how it goes. I know you're not a bad player here, Spud, but at the end of the day, if you're losing to those players, you can't call them bad, right? So let's keep that in mind. But here we go. That's it for today. Thank you so much to everybody who showed up. Wish you guys all a great rest of your night. Tomorrow, we're going to be going over Gaiman Gladiator. So see you all then. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.